For many of you, you've heard me speak before. For some of you, you've heard me tell part of my story. And for many others, this is the first time you're hearing me speak. So often, many of you are strangers to me. It was as a young child I was warned about stranger danger. I was taught not to go look for the lost puppy. I was told not to take candy from a stranger. But in my life, it wasn't strangers that stole my innocence and robbed me of my childhood. It was people I loved and trusted. And it's often the wrong message we send kids in this society about stranger danger, don't go look for the lost puppy. Yet when it's 90% of the time when children are victimized, it's by someone they love and trust and know. By someone parents trust with their children. My story begins when I was just a little 6-year-old. It's a story I did not share until I was 23 years old and I already had been a published author, standing on stages, speaking before thousands of people, yet still keeping a secret in the back of my mind, one secret that was not yet haunting me, did not start haunting me until I started to speak publicly about it. It's a story about a promise I made at 6 years old to a best friend. Her name was Ashley. She was the best friend that lived up the street from me. We were in brownies together, played after school, recess, and lived up the street where I used to go to her house all the time and play at her home when her mom wasn't home and her living uncle babysat us. He was the caretaker who was supposed to be watching her. He was also the first man to steal my innocence, or as I say, kill my innocence. As a young child one night, spending the night at her house, her uncle walked into the room. Me, being the little kid I was, woke up, looking up at him strangely, as this man began to molest me. But I didn't say anything. Because I wasn't taught as a young little girl what he was doing was wrong. I was taught about stranger dangers. I was taught about not going and looking for that little lost puppy. I was taught about tornado drills, fire drills, bush drills. But the message about sexual abuse was never educated in schools in my childhood. So I stayed silent and didn't say anything. Several months later, I would be in first grade with Ashley. We were both held back because of signs of little kids acting out in anger and rage. It was at another overnight that this man once again sexually abused me. I didn't say anything, fearing of what would happen. Being told I knew where you lived, as he lived just down the street from me. And of course, I wasn't given the message of how to speak out about this, so I didn't say anything. I avoided sleepovers at Ashley's house, feared this man, and would only go play at her house during the day in the backyard, sidewalk chalk, or play with the large dollhouse in the back. It was during one of those January cold days that I went over to Ashley's house that I will never forget, that I describe in my second book, Living for Today. A story that, as I stood on many stages telling people to break the silence of sexual abuse, walked into many classrooms telling people to talk about this, I was still holding on to because it wasn't yet haunting me. But eventually it began to, and it surfaced. I was just 6.5 when this grown man came into a back bedroom, locked the door, forced me up onto a bed, and raped me. It's an image in my head that I'll never be able to erase. An image that is clear as day, what he looked like, what the bedroom was. It's a snapshot that I will never be able to erase, even 18 years later. Yet I stayed silent. Something that I kept silent for 15 years until I was 23 years old. Too afraid, too ashamed to allow myself to go back there. Go back to that horror that I endured. That day as I ran out of her house, my little childhood friend Ashley stopped me, who had been locked outside the bedroom door. He grabbed my pinky and said, "You have to pinky promise me you won't tell anybody what he does." I, of course, a little kid, was scared and confused and said, "What do you mean?" He says, "We'll lose our home if I tell anybody what he does." In a panic and fright, I took my best friend's finger. Pinky promised her I wouldn't say anything, and I kept that promise for 16 years. Running home, never telling